Welcome to the Upshot. I'm Huntsville Mayor Tommy Battle. Our program today will focus on Huntsville utilities and how this dynamic public utility is innovating on many fronts, from a high-tech infrastructure to energy savings. Huntsville Utilities is owned by the City of Huntsville, and as a public utility, they answer only to the people they serve. Their decisions are based on what is best for customers, and that means an ongoing commitment to provide lower prices. The utility is comprised of three separate systems, which operate under three boards appointed by the City Council. The gas, water, and electric systems share the top management, customer services, billing, meter reading, accounting, and purchasing functions to save customers money. Each system pays its share of these expenses and has its own financial reports. Huntsville Utilities employs 626 people, which is an average of one employee for every 536 customers. Every person associated with Huntsville Utilities is a local resident, including the board members. With me here today is chair of one of those boards, Ronnie Boles, and the newly appointed interim CEO of Huntsville Utilities, Tony Owens. Tony will replace the departing Jay Stowe, who is moving over to work with TVA. Ronnie and Tony, welcome to the Upshot. We're so glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
You know, no successful growing community is able to continue to grow without infrastructure, and I guess that is y'all's function that you do on a day-to-day basis for Huntsville Utilities. Tony is the operating kind of manager now, the interim CEO, and taking care of all the little projects that we have out there. Tell us a little bit about, how big we are, how many customers. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Of course, currently we have three systems that we operate and maintain. We have an electric system, water system, and a gas system. Our electric system is approximately 180,000 customers. We cover essentially Madison County.
Mm-hmm.
That's our delineated service area. Those service areas are dictated through basically through TVA.
Sure.
In the case of the electric department. Our water system, we currently have about 95,000 customers on the water system. Our basic water demand averages about 40+ million gallons a day on a typical day throughout the year.
40 million gallons?
Yeah, well,
wow.
A little over 40 million actually, about 42 million.
Okay.
And we have a little over 90,000 customers. We have several projects going on in water. One of our larger projects, in fact, it's the largest project we've ever had, is currently going on in water. Our water service.
You're building a new water plant, is
yes,
that right?
Sir. Yes, sir, we are. Our water system basically serves the city limits of Huntsville.
Okay.
But we also sell water to other entities and with the surrounding communities. We wholesale water to New Hope, Owens Crossroads, Madison County, Redstone Arsenal. So we're pretty widespread there too. The gas system.
You stay very, very busy with that. Water, gas, electric.
Yeah,
it keeps you going.
It's challenging.
Yeah, Ronnie, you chair the electric board, and y'all have several boards. Tell me a little bit about your makeup and let the people know how that's set up and who's on the boards.
Well, we have on our board George Moore and Thomas Winstead, and the three of us are on that board. On each of these boards, you got gas, water, and electric, and each one has three members, and they're appointed by the City Council, of course. And so you got staggered three-year terms, so every year the City Council is working on an appointment for the next 3 years for one of those positions in each of those boards. Although I guess I should say that your gas and water guys wear two hats.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
But the electric board is, I'll go back on the TVA was created by the Federal Act in 1933, and that was a federal program to break Appalachia, the Appalachian area out of the Dark Ages, which is very successful in doing. And when they did that, about 1948, the city fathers of Huntsville decided to climb on board. And at that time, it was a little town of about 15,000 people, and there wasn't really any electricity out in the rural areas. But Alabama Power preceded TVA, and their headquarters the building is still standing.
Really?
It's down on Woodson Street. It looks like a fire hall.
And so Alabama Power was here before TVA.
That's right.
Okay. All right.
But there was a lot of wisdom shown in the way they decided to have a separate board to run the company. I don't know, they couldn't have had any idea to know how large it could be. But that we have the authority through the City Council to operate the utilities. In my case, in our case, it's electric, but of course we get gas, water, and electric for the benefit of the citizens of.
So you basically you take electricity that comes from TVA, and we work as a distributor from TVA.
That's
And
correct.
How many distributors do they have through the system?
Okay, we got 155 distributors, and we are the 5th largest.
Wow.
We're the 21st largest in the United States.
Yeah.
Okay.
Publicly owned utility.
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. And so there's TVA works with each of you, and they provide the power. You basically pay TVA, and then you have to figure out what your operating cost is to figure out what you're going to charge for power. You know, we were talking earlier about rates, and that's the thing that always comes back to council and city is how do you figure your rates? How do y'all as a board look at that?
Okay, there are 2 factors in rates. One is cost of service. The other one is fueling the expansion of infrastructure. So we have 3 classes of customers. We've got residential, commercial, and industrial. And we do a cost of service study, and TVA does that with us. Because people don't know this, I don't think, but TVA is basically, through the federal law, our regulator.
Yeah.
Now, the council has to approve of what we come up with, but to get to the right rate based on cost, we see where the cost is, and we want to make sure that each one of those customer classes is charged proportionately. You don't charge somebody too much and so somebody can pay too little. Well, okay, the second part is the infrastructure. Now, gas, water, and electric, our boards and all of our employees are committed that you, as mayor, will never have to look and say, I don't have the infrastructure to provide reliability. We got a very high reliability rate, and we'll always have the infrastructure ready if you bring more people in, companies in with good paying jobs. We want the infrastructure in place.
And when you're
And the
talking
capacity,
infrastructure,
too.
you're talking lines to service, enough capacity in those lines,
Yeah.
enough capacity to be able to service.
As Mr. Boles said, you know, we purchase power from TVA. It's and we're a local power company. We distribute that.
Sure.
So I think about 88% of every dollar we take in on the electric side goes back to TVA for the commodity that we used.
Okay.
So it's up to us to operate on that 12% or so, you know, and that's maintenance of the lines and infrastructure, you know, expansion and just maintenance of the system.
And you
growth
have
of
to
the
pay
system.
people to actually go out and work on those lines to
Oh, yeah.
build, to everything else. And so you have a payroll or
yeah.
a personnel cost out of that whole
Oh
thing
yeah.
too.
Oh yeah, yeah we do. And utilities is it's just part of what we do, but it's an entity that never sleeps.
Yeah.
It's you know, our services are foundational to the community.
So
And,
out of
you
that
know,
12%,
runs all the time.
you collect $1, you send 88 cents to
Approximately.
To TVA. So you have 12 cents. That 12 cents has to cover your capital cost of putting in the lines and providing that service. Has to pay for your operating cost of your personnel and all the things, and then has to pay for, and I guess your infrastructure is back in your capital cost too.
Every year, we'll have a budget coming up in
Yes, sir.
a couple of weeks.
Yes, sir, we do.
And in that budget, we have to figure on what our rates are, what the income we're going to have, and we got to know whether we're going to be able to pay our employees and have money for all these projects
Right.
that we've got going.
And the interesting thing is, most people just kind of take your electricity for granted. You flip your switch, you want to make sure that your lights come on. That's about it. We hear from the public on this is when we flip the switch and the power does not come on. How many outages do y'all have a year? How many y'all work with?
I was looking at some statistics not long ago, some numbers on our system. And when we have what we call a breaker lockout, you know, that could impact.
Is that the one that we usually hear that a squirrel got in there and messed them up, or a big raccoon got in there and didn't make it through?
It will cause that.
Okay,
It
all
will
right.
do that. So will a thunderstorm and a tree.
Okay.
And that type thing. But it typically takes us about an hour and a half to respond. That crews have to actually ride out that circuit. They see the damage, they isolate it, we make the breaker back up, and of course we get most of the people back on. But then they have to make the repairs and that kind of thing. So it's a time-consuming thing. We have to be careful. There's always safety involved, and it takes a while to do that. Our outages, I think, probably an average 1,300 a month, something like that. Caused a lot of it's caused by different reasons. You know,
That
it can be
1,300, can be one house, or can be a whole street of houses,
what we call
or a whole section.
Yeah, it's what we call an outage. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
And it's caused by the obvious, you know, squirrels, tree limbs, car accidents, and things like that. It happens where our assets are very vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, to
And
cars,
Ronnie, when y'all
traffic.
do your budgeting on the board and everything else, you have to budget for these outages, overtime for people to go out to do it, crews to be ready to go.
That's on the payroll and overtime when they come in the middle of the night and fix those lines. Those linemen are real heroes.
Yeah.
They are.
They're always
They do a great
welcome
job.
site. But our reliability overall is 99.999.
Yeah, it's about
Wow.
3 nines.
Okay.
Yes.
3 nines.
All right, 99.999, huh? Okay, good.
Yeah.
You know, we get to hear about that .0001.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
that's
exactly
true.
right.
That is
We do
true,
too.
and that they should call in, but
Yeah.
they need to know that the direction we're going with this fiber backbone is that we'll have something in place to manage the system. Well, we'll know about it before they call us,
Yes.
probably.
Okay.
Yeah, an
all
outage
right.
management system.
Now tell me, this gets into what I want to talk to a little bit later about the Google Fiber and how it's going to be rolled out and everything else. How can you know before the person makes that call that you're out of power?
Well, there's something called distribution automation, and it's something that we'll be looking into.
Distribution automation?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's something we'll be looking into in the future, and it's all tied back into our need for fiber, and that's what initiated the fiber project, was our need. And it's not just electric, it's water and gas. Fiber is by far, that technology and the advances that they've made in that is by far the best way to actually operate and control your system, whether it be electric, water, or gas.
So you'll be able to monitor where electricity is or where water or gas
Oh,
is?
sure. And what we do with it, by having fiber basically where our electric grid is located, that way we can put the equipment on and be able to control reclosures and breakers and switches and things of that nature on the electric side, so that we're continuously monitoring that. And then when we have a fault on it, then we can remotely isolate that fault and get those customers back on, except for the ones in the immediate area, the damage. On the water side of things, we use the fiber to control pump stations and valves and tanks. The water system's got about 37 tanks, 35 pump stations in those plants, and thousands of valves in the system. We do the same thing with the water system that we do with the electric. When there's a main break and you're monitoring pressures, you can isolate a zone and keep a lot of people in water rather than, 4,000 or 5,000 customers.
Yeah.
Gas, we have gate stations, we have regulator stations, pressure zones.
So every one of those is part of your capital costs that you
Oh, yeah.
regulation,
And
the valves,
it's-
the piping, the
It's what we'll do with fiber, too, to
substations and
control
everything
it.
else.
Yes, sir.
You've got to have all that.
Yeah.
The driver on that is the way we can control our cost of power from TVA. TVA starts out with the lowest cost of power generation, like water. Then it'll go to coal, it'll go to nuclear. Well, every time they bring something new on, they've got a higher cost. Okay, the idea behind this SCADA system that's controlled through the fiber backbone is that it can control the voltage and bring that peak down. Not only that, also part of the fiber is to make sure we get smart meters into the homes, so they have the same option of controlling their cost. And when they control their cost, they control our peak, which controls what we pay to TVA.
Yeah.
So if you got a producer who can produce 10,000 watts and you got a user who can use from 1,000 to 3,000 watts, y'all have to plan on them using that 3,000 watts so that you can make sure that you have the capacity to serve them, right?
The capacity
and
has
so
to
that's
be
why
built.
we pay a demand charge on our
That's right.
on our
That's right.
on our power bills. But And if I read you right, through the new fiber system or through the sensors and testing, we can kind of make that whole flow kind of even out, and we won't have as much peaks and valleys in the demands as we've shown in the past.
We can. It's called load control, and we're continuously monitoring that load because it's critical to us because of the way TVA bills us for the power.
So,
And that we pay TVA a demand charge just like our commercial and industrial customers
so
do.
load control, the bottom line of load control is it saves us money.
It's huge.
And it will save us money. And so we're talking about load control on the utility side that we can save ourselves money for. But Ronnie, you've gone as far as saying that you can do it in your own home if you want to. If you have a big demand surge that's coming up and down, that you have some capabilities here with the new systems to be able to even out the power usage at your own home.
We know our industrial customers want that because that's their bottom line. Well, it's a bottom line to every household as well. And every household will have the option of controlling their load if they want to, because we are being, he alluded to this, we are being charged on a time of day use. It costs them more money certain times of the day when that peak gets high. And with the smart meters you can, and controls, you can control when certain things happen in your home, and that will lower it will lower the number of kilowatts hours you buy. We don't have the residentials on demand.
Yeah. So lowering the number of kilowatt hours that you buy lowers your basic power bill.
That's correct.
You know, when I talk load control, I feel like such a good engineer. I feel like I ought to have an engineering degree, but it really is. It's something that is pretty kind of cutting edge, isn't it? You know, that we've known a long time, but now we have a capability of doing this.
Yeah, and by us being able to control load and that kind of thing, that also prevents our provider, in this case TVA, from having to build additional assets to handle that peak. And again, the same applies to water. You know, we have to build infrastructure and plants and treatment capacity and everything for that peak, that occurs during summer demands and dry periods and things of that nature.
Whatever somebody's peak is, that's part of your demand charge that you got to pay, because you have to have the capability to supply that if they call on it.
You might be an engineer. That's a good bottom line.
That's right.
I like that. I like that. Good. Yeah. Now tell me, you're doing a big water plant, and that water plant's is it in Marshall County?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Marshall County on Tennessee River, and we've seen the big pipes that you come in. If you go out 431, you see those huge pipes. Those are water pipes coming in,
Yes,
right?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, and you've been doing some substation work with the utilities, and I was noticing that because it came through council the other night, and about a $10 million buy on
we did. We had some property come to council the other night for a new substation that we've got planned.
And a substation costs about $10 million. Is that about right?
Wow. A transformer can easily cost $1 million. And we have 12 delivery points in our electric system that it's purchase points from TVA.
Yeah.
They're your larger substations, and then we have approximately 90 distribution subs. So we've got a lot of infrastructure out there, and it's to operate and maintain.
Those snow and ice days when you're sitting out there and it's iced up, and all of a sudden you see the big flashes, boom, 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 transformers
That's
going.
a bad day, Mayor.
You can count. I can count that as a bad day because I'm about to get called somebody's power's out. But it's also a bad day because every one of those booms has a big financial cost to it that has to be put back into place.
Potentially it does.
Yeah.
A lot of times it may be a fuse, and we may dodge some high costs there, but a lot of times it's damage to the transformer.
And you're expanding your gas system too, right?
We are. We've got some transmission work going on with transmission pipelines and that kind of thing. You may have seen the construction out along Highway 72.
Sure.
That's a transmission line that we're putting in for some system reliability and back feeds and things of that nature. We've changed some policies. The Water and Gas Board has changed some policies that has allowed us to be a little more aggressive with the gas expansion. Gas is a good value right now.
Yeah.
It's good for our customer. And oddly enough, gas helps electric in some ways because gas heating and things of that nature helps take a little electric load off during a peak period.
Okay.
Somebody's going to use the generators to save our
Yes,
peak.
sir.
That's
great. That's another thing Mr. Boles mentioned in the water plant, and that's some of the synergy we get out of the boards having 3 entities, 3 departments is at the water plant. I tell everybody the water plant job is really, it involves all 3. in the property, and that project actually started 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that gives you an idea of, you have to really get out in front of infrastructure.
Sure.
And,
You have to have a long planning lead
in
time,
the
don't
utility
you?
business and that type thing. But that water plant, of course, we have an intake on Guntersville Lake actually.
Okay.
And it will bring the water into the plant, and then there's about 8 miles of 48-inch transmission main, which ties it back into our
Which is
system.
a 4-foot pipe
It's 4
coming
foot,
in,
yeah.
bringing it in. Wow, that's a lot of
That's
water.
4 foot at about 130 psi. So it's designed to handle up to 96 million a day.
96 million gallons a day?
Yes.
Wow, that's a lot of water.
Yes, the plant, the pipeline. But the back to the plant site, we also in laying that plant out, we've got some natural gas generation that we'll have there, not only for the plant, but hopefully if TVA, we can work with them. We'd like to sell some power back on the grid, and we use our natural gas to fuel the generator. But also we have the property there at the plant site. Will be another delivery point out of TVA for the electric grid.
Good.
And we'll be building it too.
Now, our favorite topic, Google Fiber.
Yes, sir.
Google, as I understand it, you are in the process right now of building the ring. The
backbone.
The backbone, which is the ring, which is what, 60 miles? Is it?
It's actually about 90 miles.
About 90-mile ring that you're building within the city of Huntsville, and that's supposed to be finished. Gosh, you gave me a date, December?
I think we're a little ahead of schedule,
Okay.
but it's approximately 90 miles of construction. We're doing a lot of that in-house with our folks. It's being constructed up in what we call the power space.
Sure.
And so we're able to do it with a lot of our assets and folks. And we're probably about 75 miles into that 90-mile ring, so it's coming along well.
So when you finish the 90-mile ring, then you go from the ring out to the neighborhoods and provide power there. And how many miles of fiber will you be putting out?
Well, we'll come off the ring. The fiber system, this initial phase of it for the city, basically the city limits, corporate limits, Owensville, is divided into 6 areas. We call them huts. It'd be the aggregation points and that type thing. We'll drop the backbone into the huts, and then coming out of the huts is your distribution and access fiber. Now, the distribution and access fiber basically is approximately 650 miles of overhead, about 350 miles of underground.
So 1,000 miles of fiber, basically, all total, coming off of the backbone.
Backbone.
Ronnie, talk to me about how do we afford this? I mean, we've got estimates, $57–60 million for this. Talk to us about the financials.
Well, the numbers work because of the revenues that we have projected to come in to pay for a lot of it. Of course, we're going to have to go out and borrow some money, and we're hoping to get a rate increase to help us do this as well.
Sure.
As we'll have 3 customers now, and as Tony has already mentioned, we may have more of the communication people want to use our dark fiber.
Yeah.
But right now, we do some for the city of Huntsville, for educational institutions.
Right.
Google, to take Tony's description a little bit further, the far end of that, after you pass the hut, are portals that they plug into, and they've got, Google is going to come through at a particular point. Is it late 2017 when they start?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
When they start.
And as they get for each portal they put in, they're paying us money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that's how the numbers work.
And basically Google is paying the majority of the cost of the bond issue to bond out the.
As it turns out, that's
$57 million,
a big help.
Yeah. And you know,
We need the backbone anyway, but this helps us do what we need to do.
Yeah.
And it's a dark fiber business model. Huntsville Utilities we're not getting into any content or anything like that. Sure. We're leasing a pipeline, and we open that up to other entities, and we've had numerous conversations with some other entities, to lease the dark fiber. And Huntsville Utilities will not be going to the home. With the drops that Mr. Boles mentioned and things like that will be ever who your service provider is going to be.
The Googles or the
Google
Wows or the Comcast,
yes,
or
exactly.
whoever we have in there. We're also part of that city of Huntsville,
Sure.
and we're using it for some of the same things you're using for SCADA to check our sewer system, traffic system, and hopefully get to where if we got a traffic system or traffic malfunction, a traffic light, we know before somebody has to call us to say, hey, this is this is misfiring. It's coming off at different timing than it should be. And also it helps us track some of our traffic as we come through. So we can use what I guess they call us a smart traffic grid. Plus it goes out to all of our city facilities and to our schools. And so
Police,
we have all
fire,
that capability.
your cameras.
Doing it cameras throughout, and it gives us a capability to have a monitoring camera system in place that can work. So we'll pay some, y'all will pay some to put it in. Google will pay as they do their portals and put their portals out. So it becomes a kind of a win-win to everybody. And then if we have somebody else come in onto that dark fiber, then it's kind of an added revenue to the stream, isn't it? And it becomes what did they call it in? They called it one time. They said it's a profit deal. Yeah, okay, that's a rarity for government, huh?
Yeah. It's an interesting model that's been developed for this, and it's not your typical. I know Google really, we talk about that a lot, but really they're just another tenant on it. And it's actually a little different business model for Google too.
Yeah.
And I think I know there's been a lot of interest. Jay has been the leader in that area, and there's been a lot of interest across the country in the model that we have here in Huntsville.
Sure. Now, one of the things that we talk about, and y'all have to do it, Ronnie, every time that y'all go and have a board meeting and start talking about budgets and everything else, is planning for the future. And like you said, Tony, y'all started planning this water plant 10 years ago. Talk a little bit about what you have to do to stay ahead of growth, to make sure we have the infrastructure in place as we actually grow, and how y'all have to go through that planning process as you plan out your future.
When you take a look at the overall, like at the top of this table, 30 years ago, we might have had 4 distribution points for TVA. Having them spread out like this, and now we're up to 12, I think.
Yeah, 12.
That helps. All the substations that we've got, we try to move ahead of where we think the growth is, putting the substations. And we haven't got behind it very often.
That's right.
We usually have it. So that's why we have such a high reliability figure. But you're right. You got to do some forecasting. You got to try to predict trends and stay ahead of it.
And it means putting money into capital so that you can continue to grow as you move along. And
there are very few industries as capital intensive as the electric utility industry.
Yeah, sure. How much do y'all spend a year on capital? What would you say?
Oh God, in each department, I don't know to break
million
it.
coming in.
Yeah, coming in, but to break it out into capital versus O&M, I'd have to. That's a Ted question.
Well, matter of fact, in about a week, we're working on the budgets right now.
Working
We
on
don't
the
know exactly
budget.
what that number is.
We're in the same boat. We're doing the same thing. We're working on budgets on a day-to-day basis, and we work on a 10-year capital plan and work on 2 funds, which are our capital funds, and it's always kind of interesting to see how we stay ahead of everything. We build a road, it's a 10-year build. Same things y'all doing with the water plant, looking at a 10-year build. So, Ronnie, now tell me, how much do we pay board members to be on the board?
$50 a month.
You are well worth your $50 a month.
He earns it every month.
It's community service is the way I look at it.
He earns it.
Well, I want to tell you, I appreciate you serving on boards and everything else. And at $50 a month, we are getting a great deal for having the people that put time and effort into it to make sure that we as a community continue to have power day to day to day. And Tony, I know that you're stepping into a situation. Jay Stowe's moving to TVA, and you're coming in as the interim director. And thank you so much for picking up the reins and taking it.
Glad to.
And taking us down the road and holding the ship together for a while, because it is a big ship.
It is.
And it is very important to us. If you don't have, if I don't have electricity, gas, and water, somebody's going to call me, and I will hear from it in the mayor's office. But also, if we don't have electricity, gas, and water, we can't grow, we can't be a successful community. Right. And if we don't have a good board and a staff who looks out that 10, 15, 20 years ahead, we can't continue to grow. So thank you to both of you for your job that y'all are doing.
We thank you.
We work together very well with the city of Huntsville, and,
Yes.
and I want to thank you for the leadership that you've shown this city.
Provide.
and make this promise to you. You just keep bringing in the jobs, and we'll
That's
have the
right.
infrastructure ready for you.
We will keep that infrastructure ahead of the game.
We will keep working on it. And I want to thank both of y'all for being here. I'm Mayor Tommy Battle. We'll see you next time on the Upshot.